Welcome back. Well, the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, declaring an important success this morning, saying that Ukraine has reclaimed roughly 60 square miles of land taken by Russia over the summer. Russian airstrikes into the Donetsk region reportedly killed at least 5 people yesterday alone. Meanwhile, Kyiv hit back with long-range strikes on the Kremlin's oil refineries. Vladimir Putin says more than 700,000 Russian soldiers are still deployed on the front lines of Ukraine. President Trump commenting on it all yesterday. Watch.
The one that I thought would be easiest would be because of my relationship with President Putin, but he's let me down. Millions of people have died in that war, millions of souls, and they're not American. They're soldiers, mostly soldiers, as you know. The soldiers are being killed at levels that nobody's seen since the Second World War, but they're being killed, and I feel I have an obligation to get it settled for that reason.
Joining me now is the U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. Ambassador, always a pleasure. Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Good to be with you again.
Your reaction?
Well, obviously this war needs to end. President Trump is a peacemaker. He's settled 7 wars in the first 8 months in office, and I think he'll be able to resolve this. But at the same time, you know, our NATO allies are stepping up and making sure that the Ukrainians have the best equipment and munitions in the world, and that's American munitions and equipment. And so we've sold $2 billion worth of American equipment and munitions to our NATO allies who have provided that to Ukraine, and we expect billions upon billions more in the coming months. But, you know, President Trump understands leverage. He's been speaking out against countries like Hungary, Turkey, and Slovakia that are buying Russian oil still. He knows that that's what's funding this war on the Russian side, and he knows that he needs Europe to step up as much as the United States is. And so that's the conditions he's trying to create to get to a resolution and end this war.
Yeah, but Ambassador, I mean, is Russia becoming even more aggressive? You know, we know that Poland said that Russian drones tried to violate Poland airspace again, just days after Poland shot down more than a dozen of those drones from Russia. Now, those drones were not armed. They're being called duds, but it caused a major alarm within NATO allies. Poland's president, Karol Nawrocki, called it a test by Russia. And I will be speaking with the new president of Poland next week. I hope our audience joins me for that special interview here on Tuesday with President Karol Nawrocki of Poland. But, Ambassador, I also spoke with the Secretary of State of Poland on this program this week. Here's what he said about all of these incursions. Watch. We should point out that the officials in Belarus, which, of course, is a Russian ally, claimed that the drones entered Polish airspace by mistake. You do not believe this was a mistake?
We do not believe that it was a mistake. Of course, there were hundreds of drones heading towards Ukraine, and many of them already hit the target in Ukraine, or they were eliminated by Ukrainian air forces. But those 21 drones, they were not by mistake in Poland. It was a on-purpose step taken by Russia, and we are 100% sure of that.
So Romania also spotting drones from the Kremlin in Romanian airspace last week, the second NATO ally now behind Poland to report an incursion. Ambassador, what should NATO do? Should there be a response from the entire NATO partnership?
Well, I was in Poland this week and met with that gentleman, the National Security Advisor. I met with the Foreign Minister and the Defense Minister, and obviously this drone incursion dominated our discussions. And if it was a test, I think NATO wildly passed. And here's what happened. We responded right away, shooting down the drones, sending a strong message. We met last week in Article 4 consultation to discuss next steps. And, you know, we are deploying additional assets to Poland and to those on the eastern flank. So NATO is responding. You know, I think it points out that we need to continue to work on air defense that is multi-layered, that is inexpensive compared to the threats, because obviously it's shooting down drones that are duds, to your point, with multi-million-dollar missiles is inefficient and ineffective. So we're going to continue to work on those issues as well. But, Poland is right there staring at the, Russians, seeing what they're doing in Ukraine. But, I think the Russian threat sometimes is a little overstated. They have not had a lot of success. And to your point, Ukraine has actually taken back territory. And so, to me, that points to a weakness in Russia. And as their economy continues to falter, I think their continuation of this war is going to be difficult. But President Trump is going to continue to find the leverage and to find the conditions where he can bring both sides and mediate a resolution. Because, again, he's not going to set the conditions. Both sides are going to have to agree to a peace deal. But let's continue to work on this and continue to hope and pray that this resolves in the near future so that the deaths will end.
This is very alarming. You know that. I mean, look, you've got citizens joining the army in Poland right now. They're worried that they need to be ready should Russia attack Poland. I mean, drones that are duds and, testing NATO. What is this, taunting NATO allies?
Well, it is not, because, again, the intelligence hasn't concluded as to whether this was intentional or not. If it's intentional, that's a very serious violation, and we'll respond accordingly. We're going to not get ahead of President Trump's and the intelligence community's determination on that. So at the same time, we're going to be ready. We're going to make sure that our alliance is strong. That's why these investments are so important that we agreed to at The Hague.
Yes, of course. And President Trump has been touting the strength of NATO and America's relationship with the UK in particular. Watch this.
The United States and the United Kingdom have done more good on this planet than any two nations in human history. And I want to congratulate the United Kingdom on making the vital commitment to spend 5% of GDP on defense at the NATO summit this year. I'm very honored to tell you that we've solved 7 wars, wars that were unsolvable, wars that couldn't be negotiated or done.
Ambassador, what are the next catalysts that you're watching with regard to that 5% spend on defense for NATO members?
Well, the most important thing is the incremental year-on-year growth and commitment to that. We're seeing the Germans step up. We're seeing UK and France also. A lot of our allies are stepping up, but we still have some like Italy and Spain that need to demonstrate that they're on the same path year over year on their growing their defense budgets.
Interesting. All right, we'll be watching that. Thanks so much, Matt Whitaker. Always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.